to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Amen. Members, the House is now in session. Okay. Members, the minutes from the 22nd of September have been circulated. Are there any amendments required? There are none. The minutes will be confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker. Members, the following members have indicated they'll be absent today. The Minister Wayne Furbert, Minister Diallo Ruben, MP Lister, MP Swan, and opposition leader that has also been included. He's just not well this morning, so we wish him a speedy recovery. So he'll be out today as well. Messengers from the Senate, there are none. And I should include, Michael Dunkley as well. MP Dunkley is also on the list. Those members are all off island. It's the opposition leader who's sick, but the other members are all off island. Some on government business or personal matters. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Papers and other communications, there are 9 papers this morning. I believe the first is in the name of the Premier, Minister of Finance. Premier?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the 2018 report for the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission, the audited financial statements for the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission for the year ended 31st of March 2018, the 2019 report of the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission, the audited financial statements of the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission for the year ended 31st of March 2019, and the 2020 annual report for Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission.
Thank you. Members, the next papers communications morning would be in the name of the Madam AG. Madam AG.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Legal Aid Annual Report 2023.
Thank you. The next paper this morning is in the name of the Minister of Labor, Economy and Labor, Minister Hayward.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the 2022-2023 Annual Report for the Department of Financial Assistance.
Yes, and the next?
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of this Honorable House the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation's proposed report for the expansion of the North East Hamilton EEZ to Southeast Hamilton.
Thank you. Members, that's the end of the papers and communications for today. The next item is petitions. There are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. We have 8 statements this morning. The first is in the name of the Premier. Premier, would you like to present your statements? And members, I did indicate 8 in that the earlier order paper may have had, I think, 10 items, but those items have been removed, so it's just 8 items this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I do note that members are handing out items. They're coming right now.
Yes.
I will stand by, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker.
Make sure the opposition get there so we can get started. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to provide this honorable House and the public with an update on the significant progress made thus far on the efforts to substantially reform Bermuda's tax system. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall that in the Progressive Labor Party's 2020 election platform, the government committed to forming a new tax reform commission to conduct a further review of Bermuda's system of taxation and revenue collection. In December 2020, this honorable House passed the Tax Reform Commission Amendment Act to establish a new commission to make recommendations on tax reform to the government. However, in October 2021, a global agreement was reached to make material changes to the global tax system. In particular, it was agreed that a minimum tax would be imposed on large multinational enterprises on a jurisdictional basis. Under the framework, which was agreed by almost 150 countries, such entities would be subject to a 15% tax rate, which would be applied to the profits in every jurisdiction in which they had a corporate footprint. Mr. Speaker, tax transparency and tax compliance are fundamental principles upon which Bermuda has built its reputation as a premier international financial center. It was recognized that this global minimum tax requirement would primarily impact companies in our international business sector. Therefore, consistent with Bermuda's approach to changes that affect the international business sector, it was determined that it would be prudent to get input from tax experts, from industry, and other sources. Thus, in January, the government impaneled an international tax working group consisting of lawyers, accountants, and others with corporate tax expertise to examine the best way to implement the new global minimum tax in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, this working group completed the first phase of their work in July of this year and provided their recommendations to the government. Having assessed the input provided by the working group in August, the government of Bermuda issued a consultation paper on the proposed new corporate income tax regime and launched the initial consultation period for the proposed changes. Mr. Speaker, the feedback from that consultation has been very informative and has greatly assisted the government in developing the corporate income tax proposal. It is now intended that a second, more comprehensive consultation paper will be issued in the next 2 weeks, allowing the government to continue this critical work to meet the international commitment that Bermuda made in 2021. Mr. Speaker, the work of the new Tax Reform Commission is intricately linked with the work being done to develop the Bermuda corporate income tax regime. Therefore, while the consultation development of the global minimum tax framework continues, the government has also progressed its work to impanel the new Tax Reform Commission. The goal of this new commission will be to review our existing system of domestic taxation to ensure that it is in line with the requirements of the global minimum tax, while also examining what other changes to our local taxes are needed to ensure that Bermuda's economy remains competitive. Mr. Speaker, the new commission will be a highly qualified and diverse team representing all aspects of Bermuda's economy. Similar to the last Tax Reform Commission, the makeup of the 7 members of the commission will be as follows: a chair of the commission, Progressive Labor Party representative, 1 Bermuda Alliance representative, Bermuda Trade Union Congress representative, local business representative appointed by the Chamber of Commerce, an international business representative, and 1 general member. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to advise honorable members that Mr. Darren Johnston has agreed to chair this important commission. Although more information will be provided when the members of the commission are gazetted, Mr. Johnston is the former CEO of PricewaterhouseCoopers Caribbean Region Limited and is currently the Chief Operating Officer of Orbis Investment Management Limited. Mr. Johnston is ably qualified to lead this important body, and I wish to thank him for agreeing to undertake a task that will have a significant impact on Bermuda's future. Mr. Speaker, I must also express my gratitude for the commitment of our International Tax Working Group, who have continued to provide support throughout this process. The information currently being developed by this body will provide a robust and well-developed foundation for the work to be done by the Tax Reform Commission. Mr. Speaker, honorable members and the public should again be reminded that the development of a new corporate income tax regime of the nature and scope being undertaken for Bermuda is exceptionally complex. Therefore, to ensure the required focus is adequately maintained, critical work necessary to develop key aspects of the framework will, at the appropriate stage, be advanced by the Tax Reform Commission. The Tax Reform Commission is expected to begin reviewing the domestic tax framework in light of the proposed corporate income tax in November 2023, with the aim of delivering its recommendations by mid-2024. Mr. Speaker, the new global tax regime may present an opportunity to increase government revenues. However, as I have said before, the government's policy aim is not to use these new global minimum tax revenues to significantly increase overall government revenue. This change in global taxation should allow for the reduction of existing taxes that, by their very nature, increase the cost of living and the cost of doing business. For example, additional revenues will likely allow for the reduction or possible elimination of some existing government taxes and customs duties. Mr. Speaker, this government aims to be as transparent and collaborative as possible throughout this tax reform process, evidenced by the extensive consultation on implementing a corporate income tax regime to meet international standards. That approach will continue throughout the tax reform process that the Tax Reform Commission will undertake. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I would like to thank all the stakeholders who have been involved throughout this process thus far. Your input has greatly assisted the development of the proposals. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to encourage all members of the public and the business community to participate in this process as we start our journey toward the most fundamental tax reform in Bermuda's modern history. Mr. Speaker, this historic opportunity for change will allow Bermuda to implement meaningful reforms that will significantly reduce the cost of living and the cost of doing business, leading to future economic prosperity and economic security for Bermuda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to rise today to speak about our new relationship with Google. Honorable members will be aware of Google's announcement of Nuvem, Portuguese for cloud, cable, a transatlantic cable connecting the U.S. with Portugal, actually via the Azores, with dual branches landing in Bermuda at Devonshire Bay and Annie's Bay in St. David's. Mr. Speaker, it was actually 4 years ago when I tabled the bill that subsequently became the Submarine Communications Cables Act 2020. At a high level, this legislation provides the establishment of a submarine fiber optic cable corridor with landing points at Devonshire Bay and Annie's Bay, sets out the framework for the license and regulation of such cables, provides submarine cable operators with certainty of the process with decisions within 60 to 75 days of submission of application, introduces the concept of transit cables and local cables, outlines the penalties and consequences of contraventions within the submarine cable corridor. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda is currently served by 5 cables, 3 of which are aging, 1 has been upgraded, and 1 is in the process of being upgraded. The current cables currently have significant spare capacity to serve Bermuda's market. 4 of the 5 cables land in the U.S. and 1 in Latin America. The current submarine cable corridor was designed to provide the flexibility to land 5 additional cables into Bermuda. The cable corridor was designed to attract new cables to Bermuda as part of a strategy to build out Bermuda as a digital Atlantic hub, using transit opportunities to leverage Bermuda's strategic location in the Atlantic. This, coupled with a favorable and certain legislative framework, encouraged operators to land and expand. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda Business Development Agency has been promoting and liaising with those target companies focusing on the Atlantic Digital Hub and the other services Bermuda can offer to the submarine cable industry generally. The target submarine cable operators in today's market for cable builds are the large data network providers, that being Google, Facebook, Meta, known as Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, etc. Mr. Speaker, over the past few months, my office and the Office of the Minister of Public Works, Honorable David Burke, and the Bermuda Land Development Company have been in direct contact with Google and their team leading up to this announcement. The importance of this trusted relationship was reinforced with a meeting in New York this month by myself and Google Global Head of Government Affairs, Karan Bhatia. Strict confidentiality measures were put in place prior to the announcement to manage the flow of information. This was critical to Bermuda and formed part of that trusted relationship. Mr. Speaker, it is intended that the cable will be built and laid over the coming 2 years with a ready-for-service date in 2026. Marine route surveys in Bermuda will begin later this year, along with the required permitting and licensing application, acquisition of land, and the construction of landing points and landing station to be built will be required. Significantly, Google has announced this first cable with a plan to roll out an additional new cable every 2 to 3 years thereafter. A significant cable landing station is planned to be built to enable multiple cable landings. This is more than a cable landing just passing through Bermuda. It will provide a backbone for a wider strategy of a digital port with all of the requirements for supporting data and digital infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the landing of this cable and subsequent ones will deliver on the government's commitment and strategy to outline our economic strategy document, which of course is led by the Ministry of Economy and Labor. In particular, it will establish Bermuda and the Mid-Atlantic hub and would provide reduced latency in communications with Europe and the Americas. This will be a new route for Bermuda with direct connectivity to Europe. Act as a magnet, drawing other players in the communication industry, whether laying their own cables or leasing from Google. Provide redundancy for cables currently serving Bermuda. Be a 25 to 40-year commitment for Bermuda from Google. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of other benefits to Bermuda with the landing of the Nuveen cable, including the building of a large cable landing station requiring a footprint generating significant economic spin-off and benefits, including a cash injection for the purchase of freehold land from the government, subject to the approval of the legislature. A new investment in physical plant and infrastructure, which will provide jobs for Bermudians and Bermuda companies in the construction and maintenance of the plant. Employment for around 10 to 20 direct positions needed on an ongoing basis for the cable landing station. This will likely also generate the ripple effects of jobs in other areas with the technology hub created. creating the infrastructure which supports, one, a technology hub for fintech, and two, increased satellite earth stations. Communication satellite earth stations are already either set up in Bermuda or showing increased interest in placing additional earth stations in Bermuda. Increasing investment in renewable energy. The cable landing station will need between 600 kilowatts and 3 megawatts per annum of electricity over time as the cables ramp up. Providing access to Google's significant resource and support, including training opportunities to Bermudians by giving them access to Google training platform. Providing support and advice for other sustainability projects and marine-related activities, including providing technology for monitoring and enforcement. Supporting Bermuda's educational initiatives and community development opportunities. Mr. Speaker, we welcome Google's proposed investment in Bermuda and look forward to a long and productive relationship with them. Mr. Speaker, finally, I will be remiss if I did not recognize the ongoing efforts of Ms. Fiona Beck, formerly of the Bermuda Business Development Agency and now a consultant with Google. Ms. Beck was invaluable in the development of the Submarine Communications Act 2020 and has been instrumental in establishing Google's relationship with Bermuda. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the AG. Madam AG.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I rise today pleased to inform this honorable House that the expungement of convictions, criminal records, regulations 2023 have been drafted and approved by Cabinet. They will come into effect further to negative resolution procedure authorized by Section 10 of the Expungement of Convictions Act 2020, which we'll refer to as the Expungement Act, as soon as the government's digital publication system is restored. Members may recall, Mr. Speaker, that prior to its passage in December 2017, the Misuse of Drugs, Decriminalization of Cannabis Amendment Act 2017 removed criminal sanctions in relation to the possession of cannabis where the amount is less than or equal to a statutory threshold of 7 grams. Simply put, the enactment provided that it was no longer a criminal offense for persons to be in possession of up to 7 grams of cannabis for personal use. By doing so, this government turned the page on almost half a century of criminal prosecution for possession of this amount of marijuana. Mr. Speaker, it may also be recalled that subsequent passage of the Expungement Act in March 2021 made provision for removing the identical cannabis possession conviction from criminal records of those convicted for possession of up to 7 grams before decriminalization took place. These new provisions per the Expungement Act allow the person with conviction for a relevant offense, being possession of 7 grams of cannabis or less, as provided in the schedule, to apply to the Minister of Legal Affairs and Constitutional Reform for an expungement order in accordance with criteria outlined in the Act. Mr. Speaker, it may be further recalled that Section 7 of the Expungement 8 of the Expungement Act provides that once an expungement order is obtained, the convicted person will be treated as if they never committed the expunged offense. This includes the record reflecting that they have never been charged, prosecuted, convicted, nor sentenced for that offense. It is worth emphasizing, Mr. Speaker, that Bermuda has never enacted such decriminalization measures before. They represent unprecedented steps in keeping with this government's commitment to pursuing the policy of social justice. Mr. Speaker, although persons seeking expungement have been able to do so in person or online since March of 2021, when the Expungement Act became operational, unfortunately, since then, an obstacle arose. Let me digress here to say that whereas some applicants have not been successful, indeed, a number of expungement orders have already been made. As it stands today, approximately 40 of the 51 applications made under the Expungement Act had not been able to be processed. This was due to the amount of cannabis for which applicants were convicted not being explicitly stated on their BPS criminal records, that means their police criminal records. Therefore, on the face of those records, it cannot be discerned definitively that applicants meet the 7 grams or less amount criteria for making an expungement order. Making this determination is, of course, necessary for such orders to be made. Mr. Speaker, prior to these regulations, all options to overcome this impasse had been exhausted. It was only after extensive collaboration between ministry technical staff and the Bermuda Police Service that the solution presented by these regulations was devised. Combing through criminal records provided by the BPS further to expungement applications, as well as other criminal records provided for the purpose, allowed for determination of the amount of cannabis to be made. As a result, this information in turn allowed for a deeming provision to be devised where the amount of cannabis is not stated on applicants' criminal records. These regulations therefore provide that for expungement applications, the amount of cannabis for possession convictions when not stated on the record shall be taken to be less than or equal to 7 grams for purposes of making expungement orders under the Act if A, the cannabis possession conviction was prior to December 2017, B, the expungement applicant's BPS criminal record does not specify the amount of cannabis for which the applicant was convicted, and C, the penalty upon conviction did not exceed $1,000 or 12 months conditional discharge. Mr. Speaker, in the course of addressing this issue, another important corresponding issue arose. As the law stood, it was subject to interpretation as to whether increased penalty zone, i.e. additional element fines related to the expungement possession convictions, were also expunged. It stands to reason that they would be, as otherwise the fine would stand alone on the record in the absence of the conviction that it resulted from. This would in turn leave evidence of the conviction on the record, contrary to the spirit of the expungement policy. These regulations therefore make necessary provision for the avoidance of doubt. They clarify that any additional element fines per the sentence of possession of less than 7 grams of cannabis will be expunged along with the expunged possession conviction. This achieves the overall objective of the Expungement Act in the first instance to wipe the record clean as to the targeted conviction. Mr. Speaker, the opportunity was also seized to make provision to delete the word simple from the schedule of the Expungement Act to synchronize its language with that of the Misuse of Drugs Act 1972, to which it relates. Although the word simple is often used to reference cannabis possession convictions for small amounts, the term did not exist in legislation prior. Mr. Speaker, this marks a culmination of hard work on the part of the ministry staff and crucial assistance from the Bermuda Police Service to craft the blanket policy to make the 7 gram or less presumption where necessary as captured by these regulations. The opportunity is now afforded to process the outstanding Expungement Act applications. That process is now aggressively underway and will be completed when the regulations are published and come into effect. It is therefore anticipated that if applicants have not received a decision already, they will receive it soon. Applications continue to trickle in from time to time, and it is further anticipated that a much shorter timeline will hold for any future applications. Mr. Speaker, contending with reversing punitive measures of the past to move forward in a more just way is never easy. It is always more feasible to strive to simply straighten up and fly right, irrespective of damage inflicted in the past, as was done by this government's 2017 decriminalization of possession of 7 grams of cannabis or less by amending the Misuse of Drugs Act 1972. However, the Expungement of Convictions Act 2020 is an unprecedented correctional step beyond that. Its implementation has also been a monumental task involving many stakeholders working in earnest to avail applicants of what to some will be a fresh start now permitted by law. The setbacks to date did not diminish those efforts nor derail determination to see this through to the end. These regulations are made with the assurance that what the law permits will continue to be made available to applicants to the extent feasible, sparing no efforts. I am pleased to have granted the orders that have been made to date and look forward to any future applications. My sincere appreciation for the patience of those applicants who have not yet received a final outcome due to the obstacles outlined. I look forward to your patience being rewarded in the near future. I also take this opportunity to thank the Commissioner of Police and his staff for their assistance, as well as the tireless efforts of our permanent secretary, the policy analyst as project manager, and other ministry staff whose persistence has made the intended benefits to the public of these measures possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Morning, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, since my last statement to this honorable House on this matter, I am pleased to report that our 23 local recruit firefighters that traveled to Newcastle, UK on the 5th of August, 2023 for 6 weeks to receive specialist training, successfully completed their foundational training course, qualifying them as aircraft rescue firefighters. Mr. Speaker, you may recall my previous statement when I stated that the Newcastle International Fire Training Academy is a world-class aircraft rescue firefighting training facility with highly qualified instructors. I had the opportunity to visit the facility recently and learn how this training academy prepares trainee firefighters, and I was very impressed with the training products they offered. I also spent time on a first-hand tour of the life-size mock-up simulator of a commercial aircraft, and after learning more about the specific requirements of the aviation industry, I submit that our recruits were trained to the highest standards and is on par with any jurisdiction. I met and spoke with the recruits, asking them about their experiences, and they expressed that they had received excellent training and were keen to return to Bermuda to put that training to good use. They had clearly enjoyed their training, and the morale was exceedingly high amongst them. Mr. Speaker, our new firefighters worked extremely hard to qualify as airport rescue firefighters. Each one of them was taught how to work as a member of a cohesive team under hostile conditions. Additionally, they were individually assessed for evidence of assimilation of core aerodrome knowledge specifically. Those relevant areas of the Civil Aviation Authority, publications such as CAP 168, CAP 1168, CAP 699, and the Air Navigation Order ANO 2016. In addition, they were required to demonstrate competence in the following core skills, which are namely chemistry of combustion, including hydraulics, airport engines, aircraft undercarriages, aircraft construction, aviation fuels, freight, including dangerous goods, military aircraft, helicopters, fire appliances, complex rescue equipment, firefighting equipment and media, tactics and techniques of firefighting. Mr. Speaker, each firefighter would be required to undergo a specialized driving course, enabling them to drive and operate these sophisticated fire vehicles used for aircraft crash, fire, and rescue. This includes how to drive, position, and deploy the relevant resources depending on the incident type, of which there are many. They would later undertake a 1-week self-contained breathing apparatus course where they would learn about the operation of the equipment, using it in smoke-filled environments. This would also be carried out in confined space and under extreme heat and humidity, with internal fires being present. At the end of these specialist weeks, further assessments were conducted, including a written exam, an oral exam, and a practical assessment. Mr. Speaker, each recruit received a certificate of competence in accordance with CAP 699, Standards for the Competence of Rescue and Firefighting Service Personnel, developed by the UK Civil Authority. Additionally, each of them received a certificate of completion of their foundational recruits course from the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service. Mr. Speaker, this milestone is significant as it represents the end phase of the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service's emergency plan to rapidly expand and build the extra workforce capacity required to meet the new minimum staffing levels mandated by the aerodrome regulators. The amount of resource, energy, and time expended by the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service to reach this stage was nothing short of extraordinary because of the timings of similar recruitment drives taking place in our wider ministry. Mr. Speaker, I met with the Chief Fire Officer and his management team this week and expressed my pleasure with the progress to date. It is in this connection that I am pleased to inform this Honorable House and the public that our newly trained fire officers will replace the overseas consultant fire officers on the 1st of October, 2023. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, thank you, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the role our consulting firefighters fulfilled during the most challenging period of this project. Last year, when the aerodrome audit report featured prominently in the public sphere, the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service, with the support of the government, developed a plan in coordination with a Canadian-based fire protection service provider, which resulted in a surge of overseas consulting firefighters who answered the call to serve in Bermuda for the past year. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, I met with the consulting firefighters and expressed this government's deepest appreciation for their willingness to leave the comfort of familiar surroundings and very quickly acclimate to living and working in Bermuda. Our consultants provided excellent service on behalf of the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service, and I wish for the record to reflect our deepest gratitude for that. As previously mentioned, they will fulfill their contracts until they are officially replaced on October 1st, 2023. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to ensuring that there are sufficient resources at the airport to maintain operations. We are also committed to recruiting and retaining Bermudians in the service in general. This essential service provides a challenging and rewarding career, and I encourage people to apply and join. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I wish to point out that this is another example of this government, promise made and a promise kept. Mr. Speaker, I hasten to thank the women and men throughout the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service for their continued outstanding service to this country, without which our lifeline at the airport would not be able to function and operate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, members. Minister, sorry. The members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works. Minister Birch.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
To provide accessibility to adequate and affordable housing and to promote independent living to enhance the quality of life in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, that is the mandate of the Bermuda Housing Corporation, the vehicle the government has to address the housing challenges we face in Bermuda. I'm pleased to provide an update on the progress we've made so far this year in increasing the housing stock and to also provide a look forward to the additional units coming online. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, I invite honorable members to recall the ministerial statements I made in October and December 2022 and again in March 2023, all of which detailed the works of the residential rental unit renovation program and the works that are part of the economic stimulus program under the BHC. Together, these programs will see an additional 77 affordable rental units added to the BHC stock and made available to Bermudians. Additionally, the BHC utilizes the proven Rent Geared to Income, RGI-based scheme, which is capped at 35% of the total household income, 25% for rent, and 10% for mandatory savings. This system allows for low and middle income families to afford a quality standard of living, as well as save a portion of their household income towards ultimately improving their housing conditions. Simply, if the total household income is $4,000 a month, then the rent is $1,000, while $400 will be the mandatory savings. New clients are assessed regularly for their suitability to participate in the program that can be expanded using Bermuda Housing Corporation owned stock of housing. Client status is generally reviewed annually at lease renewal or at the client's request when the household income situation changes. Mr. Speaker, in the March statement of this year, I announced that there will be an additional 42 affordable rental units added within the government's 2023-24 fiscal year. As of today, that number stands at 3 units in Sands, 1 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 2 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 2 units in Smiths, 1 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and 1 1-bed and 1 bath, 1 unit in St. David's, 1 4-bedroom, 2 bath, 8 units in Paget, 8 studio units, and 1 unit in St. George's at 1 3-bedroom, 2 bath. The above 15 units are either occupied or in the process of being allocated. The 8 units in Paget are part of the Harmony Club complex, which is undergoing renovation of all of the units to ultimately create a 52-unit complex. It is being done in phases as there are some tenants currently in place. These tenants will be moved into the new units as they are completed, so the increase of 20 additional units will come into effect at the end of the exercise. Demolition work has already begun on the next 12 units as we await planning approvals. A new 5-bed, 5-bath rooming house in Somerset is set to open next week. Based on the current demand, this will be used to house women in need. This cottage was formerly a 2-apartment family home. As we proceed through the remainder of this fiscal year, 5 units are set to be completed by December 2023, and 13 units are under construction and expected to come online in the first quarter of 2024. There are currently 22 units that are awaiting planning permission, which are expected to be completed within the next fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, this means that of the previously mentioned 77 new affordable rental units, 20 have been completed, 40 are in various stages of completion, and 17 are in the pre-planning stages. Mr. Speaker, we are making steady progress, but recognize that there is still more work to be done. I cannot emphasize this enough, Mr. Speaker. The government intends to see the completion of all these housing projects to honor our pledge to address the housing shortage. We will work through the current plans as we develop other ways to increase the housing inventory, such as expanding the private sector rental program. This program involves the Bermuda Housing Corporation renting private sector units and being responsible for the unit and the tenant placed there. The BHC will guarantee the rent and the return of the unit in the condition it was rented. The corporation has a price point that is below market value, but reasonable considering the above guarantees. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Bermuda Housing Corporation Board, ably led by MP Chris Famous, the BHC management, ably led by Mr. Paul Martin, and the BHC staff for the hard work they do every day to further deliver on the BHC mandate of providing affordable housing for Bermudians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor, Mr. Hayward.
Mr. Speaker and members of this honorable House, I rise today to lay the 2022-2023 annual report of the Department of Financial Assistance in accordance with Section 3(4) of the Financial Assistance Act 2001. Mr. Speaker, the annual report highlights that there were reduced numbers of persons on financial assistance, a reduction in the overall financial payouts, reduced number of legitimate client complaints from the prior year, and reduced numbers of review board appeals from the prior year. Mr. Speaker, the report illustrates a 5-year performance trend for the department. It remains that the categories from highest participants to lowest are pensioners, 1,023, disabled, 758, earnings low, 162, and able-bodied unemployed, 151. This has been the trend year over year. During the 2022-2023, the average number of persons on financial assistance was 2,095 persons, compared to 2,226 during the previous year. This decrease was mainly due to a decrease in the number of eligible persons in the able-bodied, unemployed, and earnings low categories, as more persons secured employment opportunities post-COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, the highest expenditures continue to be on rent, 13.77 million, nursing homes, 6.94 million, food, 6.14 million, and insurance, 5.96 million. Total expenditure in financial assistance payouts decreased by approximately 1.4 million in 2022-2023 when compared with the previous year. Total expenditure for the daycare allowance program decreased by 12% in 2022-2023 to total 1.17 million. Mr. Speaker, in order to remain compliant with relevant laws and supporting policies, the Department of Financial Assistance continues to implement and manage key functions to enhance current business systems. These include fraud and investigations. At the end of the reporting period, there were 41 cases under investigation with a total value of $328,000 as a result of the non-disclosure of facts, misrepresentation of facts, or willful abuse of the financial assistance program and the child daycare program. From this total, 26 cases with a total value of $290,000 were referred to the Attorney General's chambers for legal resolution, while 15 cases that totaled $3,000 remained under the remit of financial assistance investigation officers for repayment. Compliance and transaction monitoring. A risk management framework was developed to ensure all actions and transactions are performed by all officers in compliance with the department's legislation. Additionally, 83,710 transactions were monitored and scrutinized on the Department of Financial Assistance system software during the 2022-2023 reporting period. Mr. Speaker, Phase 1 of the financial assistance reform continued during this period. Amendments were drafted and approved for Section 6A of the Financial Assistance Regulations 2004 to allow recipients who had reached their 7-year term to remain on the program for life. However, such persons would only receive awards related to food, health insurance, and room rates. Further amendments to legislation in fiscal year 2023-2024 will increase allowances and benefits to both the Department of Financial Assistance clients and child daycare allowance. This is in keeping with the ministry's commitment to support those most vulnerable in maintaining a minimum standard of living. Mr. Speaker, the ministry would like to take this opportunity to thank the Department of Financial Assistance team, as well as all other partners who collaborated to support the work that is being carried out. The goal of the ministry continues to be one that charts a new course by making financial assistance a more well-structured, effective, and efficient system that places emphasis on transforming those who have been determined to have need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement is also in the name of the same minister. Minister, would you like to do your second statement?
Mr. Speaker and honorable members, today I will be laying before this honorable House a report proposing the establishment of an economic empowerment zone in Southeast Hamilton. Mr. Speaker, the report was prepared by the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, which has made substantial strides in creating productive partnerships in both the public and private sectors to establish the 3 economic empowerment zones: the North Hamilton Economic Empowerment Zone, the St. George's Economic Empowerment Zone, and the Somerset Economic Empowerment Zone. The first EEZ was established in Northeast Hamilton in June 2007. 2 additional EEZs in Somerset and St. George's were established in March 2011. The initiative continues to meet the government's goal of empowering businesses and residents in these designated areas. Mr. Speaker, the PLP's 2020 election platform and 2020 Durham speech included a goal to transform the city of Hamilton into a livable city by fostering the development of apartment buildings and other developments in unused and underused sites. In line with the Bermuda's Economic Recovery Plan, the 2021 Durham speech indicated that the boundaries of Northeast Hamilton Economic Empowerment Zone would be extended. Mr. Speaker, given the success of the 3 established EEZs, the government is committed to empowering additional communities to succeed economically, socially, and physically. The report before the House today proposes to establish a new economic empowerment zone in Southeast Hamilton. Regarding this new proposed EEZ, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation has carried out extensive consultation with stakeholders and businesses in Southeast Hamilton. Additionally, the City of Hamilton Plan 2023 consultative draft and related documents recognize that Southeast Hamilton warrants investment and has good development potential. As the gateway to the city, Southeast Hamilton plays an important role by providing key commuter routes into and out of Hamilton. It also plays a key role in Bermuda's economy as it hosts the container docks. However, the full economic and development potential of Eastern Hamilton, both north and south, have not yet been fully realized compared to the central and western areas of the city. The designation as an EEZ provides access to economic development tools to help this area fully realize its potential. The BEDC conducted a survey of the area, including current land use, business needs, and an assessment of existing infrastructure in the area. Respondents to BEDC's survey were in strong agreement that there should be more economic investment in the area, citing some reasons as the need for investment in building refurbishment, underdevelopment, the need for support of many small businesses in the area, as well as the need to encourage more entrepreneurship in the area. The research also concluded that there is a need for increased investment opportunities in the area to benefit the efficiency of the EEZ, combined with pedestrian linkages to Northeast Hamilton EEZ and vehicular access in and out of the city characterize the potential for the proposed South Hamilton EEZ to be a well-connected district in which to live, work, and play. Mr. Speaker, it is important to highlight that designation as an EEZ allows immediate access to a variety of incentives and products for qualifying business, property owners, developers, and investors that meet the criteria and show need for support. Currently, specific EEZ initiatives available are as follows: BEDC EEZ payroll tax concession, BEDC EEZ customs duty deferment, reduce land tax, reduce application fees on products, preferential interest rates on funding, and approved residential schemes. In closing, Mr. Speaker, this government is serious about encouraging a viable, reputable business environment, as well as the development and economic regeneration within the city, both north and south. To this end, the Ministry of Economy and Labor will continue to make economic empowerment an imperative by creating sound, progressive policies that support investment, regeneration, and growth. The creation of the Southeast Hamilton Economic Empowerment Zone is a tangible example of this commitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the final statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Social Development and Seniors. Mr. Furby, would you like to present your statement?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to share with my honorable colleagues the collaborative work that has been planned by the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors and the Bermuda Health Council to develop a national senior strategy for Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, a national senior strategy is simply defined as a framework that outlines comprehensive, coordinated, and cost-effective actions for addressing the changing needs of Bermuda's aging population. This honorable House may recall that the people of Bermuda were promised a national senior strategy that would include a strategy for dementia and a prevention plan for senior abuse, two areas of great concern that our seniors face today. Mr. Speaker, progress towards developing a sustainable national senior strategy has taken the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors longer than anticipated. It was critical to involve people in the development of the strategy who understood the unique landscape of our growing senior population in Bermuda. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, several reports have been carved in the past specifying goals and action items to enhance the overall well-being of Bermuda's seniors. These included the draft 2018 National Aging Well Strategy and the 2020 Aging Well Committee Work Plan. Therefore, it was imperative not to reinvent the wheel or insert duplication of effort. Much of the foundational work needed to build upon for the development of a national senior strategy had already been done. An updated structure, implementation path of execution is now required. Mr. Speaker, it is within this context that the draft 2018 National Aging Well Strategy will be used as the foundation to develop a national senior strategy for Bermuda. The strategy maps out 9 pillars or goals to coordinate comprehensive strategic actions across the government, the third sector, and the community to meet the needs of Bermuda's aging population. These are comprehensive planning and accountability, strategic work development and education, employment and financial security for the older adult and family caregivers, healthy aging, aging at home, quality long-term care, accessible transportation, safety and security for older adults, intergenerational and inclusive communities. Mr. Speaker, a coordinated and collaborative approach must be undertaken by different government ministries and departments to execute these 9 goals and address the needs of Bermuda's aging population. Therefore, the broader structure of the National Senior Strategy will have 2 major components as follows: a cross-sector government aging framework that sets out a theoretical framework inclusive of pillars, best practices, initiatives currently underway, and aspirations, and a 3-year operational work plan for the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors, comprising of goals, objectives, and action tasks that will align with and support the National Senior Strategy Framework. Mr. Speaker, a National Senior Strategy Project team has been formed comprising of officers employed in the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors and the Bermuda Health Council who have vast experience and subject matter expertise in the healthcare discipline. As a partner, the Health Council, a Kwango of the Ministry of Health, is bringing expertise in understanding the impacts of aging on population health and the social determinants of health that impact aging well and a person's quality of life. Mr. Speaker, let me take the opportunity now to share the members of this team. They are Program Lead Kiona Balboda, Manager of Aging and Disability Services in the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors, who has expertise in senior care and persons with disabilities. Program Lead Ishay Coleman, Program Manager of the Bermuda Health Council, has expertise in health strategy and policy. Sarah DeLacio, Program Manager of Aging Disability Services with expertise in policy and research, senior case management and dementia. Elizabeth Cast of Bermuda Health Council, who is a healthcare specialist in healthcare policy analysis, population-based projections, and quality improvement strategies. Wendy Dill of the Bermuda Health Council, a healthcare analyst and expert in legal and healthcare policy analysis, fraud, and abuse. Fiona Douglas, researcher in the Bermuda Health Council, who has experience in stakeholder training and engagement, evaluation, research, and strategic planning. And Ms. Jamae Smith of the Bermuda Health Council, who is a specialist in long-term care and adult day care facilities, will serve the role of program advisor. Mr. Speaker, the project team will be interfacing with other stakeholders in this area, government leadership, program staff, community organizations, seniors, advisory bodies, and other subject matter experts. With the team's collaborative work approach, it is anticipated the delivery of the National Senior Strategy will take roughly 6 months. Mr. Speaker, a National Senior Strategy project plan was designed in June this year, which includes the framework supporting the development of a National Senior Strategy. The Ministry of Social Development and Seniors and the Bermuda Health Council held a collaborative kickoff meeting in August to finalize the project plan. The core elements of the project plan cover a review of literature and past documents, ensuring the capture of best practices, stakeholder consultation and interviews, facilitated discussions with entities associated with the aging and wellness of our seniors, capture of information and feedback for analysis, and the delivery of strategic action and items for execution of the strategy. Mr. Speaker, this is the start of an exciting and meaningful work that lies ahead. Our ultimate vision is to create an environment that encourages and protects the ability of Bermuda seniors to age with dignity, and one that provides support for families who devote their time and resources towards the care of their senior loved ones. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I extend my sincere thanks to the National Senior Strategy Project team who've expressed a hearty level of enthusiasm and commitment to the development of Bermuda's first National Senior Strategy. I would also like to extend a sincere thanks to all persons in our community who've expressed a special interest in seniors and those who provide goods and services specifically for seniors. We look forward to the synergistic work ahead with all key stakeholder agencies and groups whose vision also aligns with implementing and establishing the very best environment to meet the needs of Bermuda's aging population and ensure that they age gracefully. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. If you comment from there again, you'll be out this door. You understand me? You're not here to be to hear it. You're here to be seen, and that's only. Thank you. Members of the gallery, for the public listening, that comment was to members of the gallery. Gallery are quite welcome to sit in and observe the proceedings of the House, only in a position where they can be seen and not heard. If they want to be heard, they need to be elsewhere. This is not a conversation for you. This is a comment for the clarity of those listening on the radio. Thank you. Members, Governor Woods. Members, that brings us to a conclusion of the statements for this morning. We'll now move on to the next item on the order paper. Reports of committees. There are none. Question period. Members, ministers, there are members who do have questions for you, and we'd like to put those questions at this time. The first questions this morning are for the statement by the Deputy Premier in reference to the submarine cable. And Minister, the MP Jackson would like to put a question to you. MP Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, Minister. I do also want to just share my appreciation and thanks for the work of all those involved, in particular Fiona Beck for her work in developing this relationship with Google. But my question is, what, if anything, has been done to prepare the Bermuda infrastructure? In particular, when I heard the minister speak to the demand on electricity to provide the service for this landing station, it immediately came to my attention that there may be a certain demand on our infrastructure and whether that has been considered and how any mitigation might be done to make sure that we accommodate those needs.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Google is a private company, so I'm certain that those matters will be worked out with what their needs are as a private company with the local utility and certainly with whoever they desire to have services from. But obviously there will be a regulatory process associated with some of their presence here, and the government will work with Google and the regulators to make sure that those services and whatever is needed to be in place will be in place.
Supplementary or new question?
Supplementary,
Yes,
Mr.
go right
Speaker.
ahead.
Yes, is there any indication, and this is just a benign question, but is there any indication that with the construction of the landing station, that that Google as a private entity would come up with their own sustainable, environmentally sustainable electric generation, that they could come with their own, whether it's some form of solar, wind, et cetera?
Minister, Premier, Deputy Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's a great question. The answer is yes. They're actually committed to sustainable and renewable energy and operating a sustainable operation and environment. And they have spoken to us about Bermuda's own commitments to renewable energy and wish to support those. And yes, they will look to have solar or other types of technology that support renewable generation as part of the future facility.
Thank you. Second sub or a new question?
I have a new question,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Speaker. Yes, my second question is around the cable landing station itself, and certainly we can wait, but I thought I'd ask if a particular location or area in Bermuda has been identified for the cable landing station.
Deputy Premier?
As my statement mentions, Mr. Speaker, Annie's Bay and Devonshire Bay are the two major landing areas. The actual area in the water where the cables come up is the existing, those are existing areas.
Mhm.
And that is where the cable will come from. There is discussion with the Ministry of Public Works as to a possible site options for the facility, but those are in early discussions, and I don't want to prejudice any discussions or details that may be between the Google and the Bermuda government on those matters.
Thank you. Supplementary or new question?
Supplementary, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker. Yes, so I am aware of that landing areas. Thank you very much for that, Minister. And I would suspect then that through planning or any other government processes, that the area residents would be made aware of any changes in that neighborhood. If the minister could just confirm.
Se-
Yes, that's the law.
okay. Second sub or new question?
It's a sub.
Go ahead.
And my other question is that as we embark on this significant cable landing station, will the government be entertaining or negotiating any forms of concessions and the like as far as the financial contribution to the Bermuda government?
Minister?
I think I outlined a list of benefits that the presence of Google will bring to the country. They have already expressed an interest in providing support in job creation, training, education, and other services that Google may already be providing to Bermuda government entities, such as the education ministry as well. So there will be things that they've already offered to be supportive of our community in different ways that they can provide.
Okay. Third question?
No, Mr. Speaker, and it sounds like a great deal.
you.
Congratulations to the minister. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy, you also have questions from MP Pyramid. MP Pyramid, take put your question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me join with MP Susan Jackson and the minister himself in thanking Ms. Beck and her efforts. Ms. Beck, Fiona Beck, formerly of the BDA. Yes, Mr. Minister, Honorable Minister, my question is a relation to the middle of page 2 of your statement, where you state, and I quote with your leave, Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Bermuda is currently served by 5 cables, 3 of which are aging. 1 has been upgraded and 1 is in the process of being upgraded. These cables currently have significant spare capacity to serve Bermuda's market. Minister, this is obviously good news. In relation to the other 5 cables, are you able to give some detail as to how old are these and who owns them, et cetera? Thank you.
Minister?
I'll happily provide details about that. There are different owners of those cables. They are not the subject of my statement, it's just the Google initiative, but I'm happy to provide that information to the honorable member, but actually it's quite available online
Mhm.
as well. So the member can actually go online, but I'll work to get it to him because all the information about the cables that come into Bermuda, who owns them, how old they are, any member of the public can look it up online. But I will endeavor to still get the honorable member that information.
It's in public domain. Thank you. Supplementary or new?
Yes,
business?
supplementary, thank you.
Yeah.
In respect of their age, you've mentioned in your statement to the House that one's been upgraded and one's in the process of being upgraded. How about the other three? Do you know anything about whether they are also being upgraded if they're aging?
Minister?
All I can say is that all the cables are aging and their life of those cables is typically 20 to 25 years.
Mhm.
So, but they are all of different age. But again, I will endeavor to get that information for the honorable member, but I will remind him that that is all public information as well. It can be garnered online by a decent search as well.
Appreciate that. Second question, second.
Still supplementary
Yeah,
on this
second
point.
sub.
Yes,
Second
thank
sub.
you, Honorable Minister. In relation to the statement that they have significant spare capacity, what steps are being taken by the ministry to try to develop and harness that capacity for Bermuda's benefit? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, those are all privately operated cables, and they service the local telecommunications community as well as the international community. So Bermuda, by virtue of being an international center, is benefiting from the presence of those cables and has done for many decades. The wonderful thing with Google's presence is that it will create even greater capacity for what those companies that are here are already doing. And just as an add-on, Google is not competing with those companies at all. If anything, their presence will allow those companies to do even more business. Thank you. Particularly for the local market. I am referring to it's Google is not providing any services to our local market.
Okay, good. Second question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Second question. So in terms of capacity, is the minister comfortable with the existing amount of capacity? Would you like to see capacity expanded and would you like to see capacity filled? Thanks.
Minister?
As my statement says, the current existing providers provide substantial capacity. The presence of Google will allow those companies in their business to have greater capacity. So that will complement the local business and local environment just by that presence alone.
Supplementary?
No further questions. Thank you.
No
Mr.
further
Speaker.
questions?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, members. The next statement that has questions this morning is the statement from the Minister of Works regarding affordable housing. Opposition Whip, would you like
Yes.
to put your questions to the minister?
Yes, just one question. On page 2, the minister mentions about the currently 22 units that are awaiting planning permission. And considering the dire need, which has sparked this good initiative, I should say, was there or is there given any priority with planning on helping expedite this process so that, of course, we can get jobs going and the likes of the construction?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the short answer is yes. The Housing Corporation have reached out to the Permanent Secretary, who's in consultation with planning to see if we can accelerate the process. But I will state that at this stage of the game, it's not delaying any progress because we are fully engaged with the work that has already been approved and will be ready to go once planning of permission is granted. In the case of Harmony, there's a significant amount of demolition that needs to be done in the main building. There were previously hotel rooms all over the place. And so we basically gutted the building and that work can go on whilst you're waiting on planning permission. So once permission comes, the actual construction can automatically begin.
Supplementary?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Minister, that's the end of questions on that statement. The next statement that has questions this morning is the statement from the Minister of Social Development and Seniors. Opposition Whip? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 2, the honorable member, with this also another great initiative, mentioned the progress towards developing this strategy going forward took a little more than time than anticipated. And I guess I'm assuming that when she says at the end of the paragraph, it was critical to involve people in the development of the strategy, that must mean that there were maybe particular groups that she needed to speak with concerning this strategy, understanding that she would have already had an outline. So the question I guess I have is, what were some of those unique groups or individuals that she mentions, people that she included in this process?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Critical persons, just making sure that we can have people in our community who were on board with getting this particular project done. That was most important to the ministry. And then also making sure that we can stay within a particular budget also to make sure that we can get this project done. So these were some critical points. So we're very thankful for bringing the Health Council coming to the table to be able to assist in this aspect.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Supplementary. Considering then that this has taken place, what would she consider a realistic time then that we have the strategy in place?
Okay. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that answer is in the paper.
Okay. Supplementary, you're fine. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, members. Madam AG, I went down the page and overlooked the question that was for you as well. Madam AG, MP Jackson has a question for you. MP?
Yes, thank you. And I just got the additional page, and so one of my questions has already been asked or answered, excuse me. But I would like to ask the minister if she may be able to give us some indication of how those folks that have fallen into this unfortunate situation, which dates back many years, how are we notifying, how are people becoming aware that they can make application to have their record expunged based on the circumstances of this?
Okay. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, at the time that we actually brought this legislation to operation, it was widely advertised, publicized. We have had consistent inquiries to the ministry in terms of the provisions for eligibility and requirements for the application process. It's an ongoing process, and I have no doubt that public awareness has lasted based on the interaction that we've had in the ministry with members of the public.
All right. Supplementary?
Second question.
Second question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My second question is the horrible thorn in our side, and that is what, if anything, is being done, or has the U.S. relaxed and taken this whole stop list issue away? How are we handling that relationship?
Wasn't in your statement. But
Yeah, wasn't in my statement, but I'm happy to say that as per the previous statements made on this subject matter, that is totally outside of our control. I have encouraged people to make their individual applications, which are dealt with on the facts that are presented to the U.S. Consul, and it was always made clear from the outset that they are separate and distinct processes.
Okay. Supplementary?
No further questions, Mr.
Okay.
Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, that brings us to a close of the question period for today. We'll now move on. The next item on the order paper, let me just clear this. The next item on the order paper would be congratulatory and obituary speeches. Would any member wish to speak to that? No member? Premier? You have your 3 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today and will associate all honorable members to offer condolences to the family of the late Mr. Gerald Harvey.
You're associating yourself with last week because you were.
It was on last week?
Yeah.
My
you were absent
sincere
last week.
apologies,
No
Mr.
problem.
Speaker. Many would know that today would have been Mr. Harvey's 100th birthday.
Correct.
Today, and as many in the House would have, I'm sure, mentioned last week, he was a pillar of the community and a man who fought against segregation is part of the progressive group. When I attended his viewing, I remarked to his family that in an era of, as are affectionately known as keyboard warriors, he was a real warrior who put himself on the front line and stood up for what was right at that time. And I wanted to make sure that I was associated with those remarks. Mr. Speaker, as I was not in the House last Friday, I would also like to be associated with condolences that were offered in the House last week to a former member of this House, the Honorable Aletha Butterfield, on the untimely passing of her son, Mr. Kirk Butterfield. I want to make sure that I'm recorded as associated with those. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to rise to give condolences to the family of a late constituent of mine, Mr. Edric Trott, who sadly passed away in August. Many will remember him as a well-known taxi operator of T1412. He was a true ambassador to Bermuda, a
Keep going.
wonderful resident, citizen, always able to assist. And I know that his wife, Carolyn, and his entire extended family will miss him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Premier, does any other member wish to, Government Whip, Mr. Terrell?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Firstly, on a sad note, let me ask if condolences can be sent to 3 families in my constituency who's had deaths in the family very recently. The first one was Mr. James Hughes of Pyramid's Hill. Mr. Hughes was a taxi driver himself as well, and had a very large family and supporters, I would say, as well. And I ask that condolences be sent to his wife, Frida. Also, Mr. Willis Smith of Lusher Hill, a young man who had some challenges in life, but he tried to live the best life that he could, and I'm sure his family will certainly be missing him as well. And finally, on obituaries, Mr. Sasso Hendrickson, a young man in my constituency who I had some footballing experiences with from Carbon Heights Road. So I would ask that condolences be sent to his family as well, as he will be missed. On a more brighter note, Mr. Speaker, I would like congratulations be sent to the First Church of God under the direction of Bishop Vernon Lamb. They have been running a program which is known as the College Student Sponsorship Program since 1976. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because I had the privilege of seeing 4 of those candidates just recently who are doing very well in their college or university programs. And I'd certainly like to mention them because one of them is one of my constituents, Mr. Andre Massenden, who is actually attending Bournemouth University, Noah Powell, my constituent, attending the North Carolina A&T State University, Xavier Ramsey, attending Mount Allison University, and Tajay Williams, studying dance at George Mason University. Mr. Speaker, I certainly ask that these congratulations go out because it just shows that we do have some very promising young Bermudians, and I just wanted to make sure that something good is said about them at this point. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Government Whip, Mr. Terrell. Deputy Premier, would you like your 3 minutes?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
right ahead,
Thank you
sir.
very much. I would just like to give a couple of comments and congratulatory remarks. One for the First Church of God on North Shore, which had a very good education service to celebrate young persons going back to school and bring some attention to them and their potential, but also to give a congratulatory message and a recognition for the Hurd Chapel on the Glebe Road, which celebrated its 115th anniversary last Sunday. Thank you for associating, so of course, my neighbor MP and Minister.
Thank you, Mr.
Michael
Meany.
Weeks.
Keep talking. Ms. Sword knows something.
Yes, just want to associate Minister MP Weeks with that same remark. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. Any other member? MP, Minister Furbitt, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to give condolences to the family of Chanel Ball, who has recently passed. Would like to associate the Premier. Chanel and I served as majorettes in the Warwick Majorette Group. And so I do want to send condolences to her family on her recent passing, as well as Takesha Rogers, who's the wife of Raji Roberts. Also like to associate the Premier with those condolences remarks. People may know Takesha and Robbie from Bermuda Signs Printers. And they worked together, did an excellent job serving the community in that capacity. Wanting to send condolences to Robbie and Takesha's children as well. Mr. Speaker, also would like to give congratulatory remarks to Ms. Uche De Silva Andre, who won a gold medal for Bermuda in the World Bocce tournament. So big congratulations for Uche. This is her first gold medal. I'd like to associate Minister Weeks and MP Susan Jackson for this major award that Uche has won for us as a country. And Mr. Speaker, this weekend I had the opportunity to attend a Celebrate Recovery conference that was put on by Rakesha Binns. This was a vision. I'd like to also associate MP Renee Ming with this. This was a vision by Rakesha Binns to provide educational tools to our church community to help in the fight of addiction and recovery for persons in our community. And she did a spectacular job bringing in persons who will help to train clergy and persons who work with our various church ministries and communities by making sure that they have access to tools and proper training to serve our community of persons who may be experiencing hardships through addiction and the ultimate aim of recovery. So I want to say a big congratulations to her for following through with that vision and mission. Particularly, it helps us as a community in Bermuda to make sure that we have persons who are serving in this capacity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Would any other member? MP Famous, you have your 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, good morning. Good morning to colleagues and people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give condolences to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on the passing of one of their beloved ministers, Minister of Social Services, Mr. Obadiah Dochcom. I want to associate the Deputy Speaker and others. He was well loved on whatever sides of the aisle, because he was truly a people's person in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, I want to give condolences to my Belco family on the passing of Master Mechanic Todil.
Yes,
Others will be associated.
yes.
I want to give condolences to my Wolves family on the passing of Mr. Butchie Hendrickson. I want to give condolences to the family of Paget Gas Station and Somerset cricketer, Mr. Dion Stubble, on the passing of his father, Gladstone Stubble. Mr. Speaker, I want to give condolences to the Burgess family of Susa Estate on the passing of Sensei Malcolm Burgess. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to give congratulations. I'm sure the Hill House will join me on this. On the Bermuda's women's football team on the 2 victories this week over the Dominican Republic, a country of 11 million people, and St. Vincent and Grenadines, a country of a few 100,000. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Does any other member wish to comment, make a contribution at this time? Minister Weeks, you have your
Thank-
3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to be associated with the remarks for Anthony Todill. He was a family member of mine, and he was sick for a while, but his passing was still sudden, and it's being taken hard on the family. So I just want to be associated with that, and I'm going to be associated with remarks for Butch Hendrickson. I've known him pretty well all my life, and condolences goes out from me and my family to the Hendrickson and Whitehead family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Does any other member wish to comment? MP Caesar, you have your 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you,
Morning.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I come with heavy heart to bring condolences for 3 families today. The first being Mrs. June Ann Lambert, who was laid to rest in August, member of the Mount Zion Church. I knew Ms. Lambert, or have known Ms. Lambert from, when I was young. Her daughter Renee and I danced together for the better of maybe 15, 20 years. But Aunt Junie, Mrs. Lambert, or Ms. Lambert, as I affectionately named her, was a very kind woman, very fashionable woman, as we heard very much during her homegoing service. She was very much loved, and she leaves to mourn her husband, Elwood, her children, Renee and Blake, her son-in-law, Antoine, daughter-in-law, Sasha, grandchildren, Teo and Darren, and of course, her extended family, friends. She was very much loved and will be missed. In addition, I bring a heavy heart for one of my constituents. She met her untimely passing. Her name was Chanel Ball, and she was laid to rest last week, standing really in her church. When I visited, obviously she was very well loved, very well known, a member of the administrative staff of the Bermuda Fire Service, and had a wonderful tribute from them there, and many others. She held my feet to the fire when I was canvassing, but we always had a great chat, and she will be missed.
Your
And-
remarks are associated with earlier remarks that were given today.
Thank you, thank you. And also, Mr. Clyde William Richardson from Monkey Hole Hill in Southampton, another of my constituents who I love to have chats with. He'd always tell me, "Oh, I don't have much to say," but I was always there longer than I think he intended. But it was always a great visit. He was always quite pleasant. He was always challenging. He will be missed. And again, I extend my condolences to his family, and in particular, my contemporary, Alicia Russell. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Any other member? MP Simmons Wade?
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to wish happy birthday to Hilda Gibbons, who's one of my constituents. She turned 90 years old. And I encourage members of the House to acknowledge our seniors, and for those special birthdays. There's not very much many seniors have to look forward to, but I can tell you they certainly appreciate when you recognize them in the House. I'd like to also give my condolences to the family of Dale Russell. He was a legend in the soccer field, overseas as well as in Bermuda. When I looked up, I saw he played in the United States, he played in other Southern Caribbean countries, so he truly was a legend internationally and locally. So condolences to his family. I also want to associate myself with the women's soccer team, who is captained by my niece, Ava Franzioni. It was quite exciting to be there with about 1,000 people cheering for them when they played in Bermuda last week. I'd also like to give a condolences to another constituent, Floyd Jennings, and his wife, Sonia, and his son Shannon. Another taxi driver as well. Let's see who I have. Yeah, anyway, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. I had quite a few people, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? Any other? There are none. Before we move on, I'd just like to associate myself with some of the comments I was given, and mainly to the condolences I expressed to the Lambert family on the passing of Janelle Lambert, who I've known my entire life as Aunt Janelle practically. I'd like to be associated with the remarks also to the Richardson family on the passing of Mr. Clyde Richardson, who I've known as a strong figure in the West End and in the church community in the Adventist Church in Sands, and to the remarks to Mr. Anthony Toadil. I know Mr. Deal mainly because of his connection to the Somerset community through his wife, and I'd just like to be associated with those remarks. Thank you, members. Before I move on to the next item on the order paper, earlier during the comments, you made me reference being made to Mr. Ming to assist in a matter, and I forgot to acknowledge this morning under the announcements that the acting Sergeant of Arms today is Mr. Roll Ming, and I'm just so familiar with seeing him around here, I forgot to acknowledge that part. But Mr. Ming, we appreciate your assistance today while the Sergeant of Arms is absent. With that, we'll move on. The next item on the order paper is matters of privilege. There are none. Personal explanations. There are none. Notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. There are none. Introduction of bills. There are none. Notice of motions. There are none. That leads us to the orders of today. And the first order on the item is the second reading of Distilleries Licensing Act 2023. And it's in the name of the Minister of Tourism and Cabinet Office. Minister Campbell, sorry. You have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill entitled the Distilleries Licensing Act 2023 be now read, the second time.
Are there any objections? There are none. Continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to present the bill entitled the Distilleries Licensing Act 2023. The purpose of the bill is to, 1, establish an industry for the distillation of spirits in Bermuda. 2, create a licensing regime for the operation of a distillery. And 3, create a framework to enable the sale and supply of locally distilled spirits. Mr. Speaker, on July 21st, 2023, this bill was first introduced to the honorable members of this House. The creation of local distilling furthers government's aim to provide opportunities for local entrepreneurs to participate in a new industry sector. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the Spirits Act 1890 prohibits distillation, the purchase and sale of low wines and spirits, and requires that the production of alcohol by local businesses take place outside of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to repeal the Spirits Act 1890 and the Immature Spirits Restriction Act 1921. And while doing so, a legislative framework is being proposed by the bill, which will provide for a new industry in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, alcoholic beverages are divided into 3 categories: wine, beer, and spirits. Wines are produced through the process of fermentation. Beers are brewed and then fermented. Spirits are first fermented and then distilled. And Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that this bill does not apply to breweries. As a matter of interest, Mr. Speaker, distilled liquor is an alcoholic liquor such as brandy, whiskey, gin, and rum, obtained by distillation from wine or other fermented fruit juice or plant juice. Further, Mr. Speaker, distillation is a widely used method of separating and purifying liquid mixtures based on differences in their boiling points. It is an essential process in various industries such as chemical manufacturing, petroleum refining, and the production of alcoholic beverages. The principle behind the distillation is that different substances have different boiling points. In a mixture of liquids, each component will evaporate and come into a liquid at its specific boiling point. By carefully controlling the temperature and pressure, it is possible to separate different components of a mixture and collect them individually. It is important to note, Mr. Speaker, that distillation is not always a perfect separation process. Some components may have similar boiling points, making complete separation difficult. In such cases, additional purification techniques may be necessary, such as multiple distillations or the use of additives. Mr. Speaker, the component with the lowest boiling point will vaporize first and condense at the highest point in an apparatus. This fraction, known as the heads, contains the most volatile substance and is typically separated and discarded. The main component, also called the heart or distillate, condenses at a moderate, more controlled temperature and is collected as the desired product. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the components with higher boiling points, known as the tails, remain in the still and are typically discharged or recycled. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, it is known that if the head and tail are not properly separated from the heart, then this can cause people to fall ill. The process of distilling spirits involves a tremendous amount of heat to produce ethanol alcohol. This exercise is dangerous and a fire hazard, not to mention it also creates an unpleasant smell. Distilling is unfriendly to the environment, and the unwanted byproducts of this process must be disposed of in a manner that will eliminate or reduce the risk of harm to the environment and residents. This is not an industry that can be set up in any part of a house or neighborhood. Only individuals, Mr. Speaker, who are experienced in distillation will be granted a license. Mr. Speaker, there are two types of licenses granted under this act. A distillery license for the small scale production of distilled spirits that includes the sale and supply of such distilled spirits. A commercial distillery license for the large scale production of distilled spirits, including the sale and supply of such distilled spirits. Mr. Speaker, a distiller may also apply for an export license, which includes an application fee. Mr. Speaker, this may appear to be a huge amount of information, but it is being offered to inform the public of the requirements and considerations necessary to participate in this new industry. Mr. Speaker, this new act will provide for the creation of a new industry sector in Bermuda that will undoubtedly create employment opportunities and promote business expansion. The new legislation will permit oversight of local distilleries and include rules and regulations governing the criteria for the physical plant, health and safety, operations, sale of products, and fees associated with the going concern. Mr. Speaker, research has shown that the distilling industry in the United States is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Total sales and revenue, market share, investment options, and employment in this sector are rapidly on the rise and forecasted to continue to trend upward. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, Barbados boasts about the increasing benefits and job creation from the implementation of the distillery industry there. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that there are no clauses included in this act that would prohibit Bermudians from continuing to make the ever-popular rum swizzle. And Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat that. I'll repeat that. There are no clauses included in this act that would prohibit Bermudians from continuing to make the ever-popular rum swizzle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Minister, does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Good afternoon, colleague. Oh, still morning?
Officer Whip, you had the floor. I didn't acknowledge you. There you are.
Yeah, this, I guess I was looking for maybe just a little more information. We'll get into some of the questions in the clauses, I guess, then, so we can get a little more information. But the creation of a new industry in Bermuda is good. This is very much welcomed by us. Although what we're looking for to understand a little more of is the actual mechanics of it and how this is actually going to work. Meaning, is this a labor-intensive industry? Is it more mechanized now? And so hopefully after we speak, then maybe the minister can give us a review of some of the questions I'll ask at this particular time. But creating a new industry, certainly for Bermudians to be able to participate in, is something that we encourage. I do believe that after listening to the minister and taking a look at some of the sustainability type issues, which he mentions as smell and byproduct, it'd be very interesting to find out whether or not a sustainability review will be done on the byproducts and what can be done, used maybe as recycling, whether or not farmers can in fact participate in this by providing sugar, growing sugarcane that would aid in providing a product that is already on the island, a raw product or ingredient that is already on the island. We do understand that this requires a lot of water. And certainly water is important to us, and how we're going to, whether or not this is going to impact on the water wells that we do have and the consumption thereof, and whether or not we're able to sustain that. There wasn't anything necessarily said about sustainability in that. Are we looking for these distilleries to provide opportunities of, again, looking locally? And whether or not there'll be, when it comes to electricity and the lights, whether they'll be looking at sustainability there and other resources that might allow this to be affordable. I don't know. I believe that this may be driven by some other local companies in Bermuda, so it is a good thing. But the details as to whether or not a review of whether this will actually work in Bermuda, we'd like to hear a little more from the minister and some of the homework that he has done on this particular industry. As I mentioned before, it's been difficult to get warehousing, to get manufacturing in Bermuda because of our labor cost. And I really don't have a clue, but I will say this here. Interestingly enough, when the bill actually came up, we were contacted, or I should say I was contacted by a Canadian distiller of vodka, who was looking for an opportunity to sell its vodka in Bermuda. And so I fortunately, and I thank the minister for bringing this industry to us, that we were going to pass a bill. I was able to say, well, listen, we're about to pass a bill allowing distilling in Bermuda for vodka. And again, I don't know all the details, but it would be nice to be able to maybe you entertain the idea of coming to Bermuda. And therein ensued a conversation that continued. I even had a conference call with them yesterday just to look at the aspects of whether or not they could potentially look at the opportunities of Bermuda, establishing their business here, of course, a low tax jurisdiction. They could take, if they move their headquarters here, it'd be wonderful if they could be able to do that. So I didn't hear much about whether or not this will be restricted to Bermudians, or if Bermudians can participate in a partnership with other distilleries abroad. I would assume so, that they can get financing and support from other distilleries abroad for any particular products. But again, it boils down to scale and whether or not it is actually sustainable in Bermuda. It is a good idea that we have this here, and we'll get into some of the questions of the smaller distilleries and the larger ones in the clauses. And then, of course, the opportunity of being able to export, and whether or not the minister believes that this is opportunity, and whether or not he's done enough homework into understanding, again, how other industries in Bermuda can participate in this. Again, I don't know all the details of distilling, but I do know that it's going to require sugar for sure. And with that sugar, can we and our farmers, and whether or not the minister has discussed with the farmers as he's been looking at this particular distilleries bill, whether or not he's actually looked at talking to some of the farmers and other industries that could possibly take advantage of it. I know that additionally, thank you. I know that additionally, this will be a great initiative for any local distillery to be able to use it as a tourism product, to do tours and the like of a local product that is actually made and distilled here. Certainly when we travel, you know, when we're looking for rum and vodkas, we go to other islands and we consume or buy these distilled products. So I believe that this is a good thing, and it will spark interest and it will spark opportunity. The sustainability part, again, I keep going back to that, is whether or not there has been a feasibility as to whether or not there's a model that will actually work. I assume what's happening here is that we're bringing a new industry to the island, and we're going to allow for the private sector to determine whether or not this is feasible, sustainable, and we'll let the private sector determine the future of where we go with this particular product, distillery industry, and whether or not it is actually feasible for Bermuda. And so I think what I will be looking at to get some more answers as far as when we go forward, as far as the clauses are concerned, I recognize that there are two classes of licenses, and it would be nice to be able to get a description of actually what those two classifications mean when we start talking about distilling and their production of a particular product. So a small production, what does that mean? Can you actually do that in your home, or the case? I know that there are stringent requirements, as I just briefly heard from the minister, that it can be quite dangerous, this particular industry. So we want to ensure that as we present this to Bermuda, that we can answer all of these questions and opportunities, quite frankly, that will arise out of it. There didn't seem to be, seemed as if, and I will again, as I said in the clause, get to it, but there seemed to be that we were losing some opportunities on duty on this particular industry. And I will ask a specific question, as I said already, about the different products that will come out of a distillery and whether or not we are taking full advantage of the opportunity when it comes to duty. I'm hoping that as we go through the clauses, that the minister will be able to give probably a bit more substantive answers outside of the overview that he has given. I will say that this is great to see. It will prove itself as it's put out there that you can get a license as to whether or not the landmass. I don't even know what the landmass is required for something like this here. So would it be good to hear from the minister on that as well? Considering a small size and a large size, what kind of landmass are we talking about? It talks about also, the bill mentions about there may be opportunity for the minister to, when a license is being granted, say that it can't be in a particular area. We need to understand, well, what are these prohibited areas for something like this? Is it similar to other things like schools and the likes, churches? I don't know. But what will be the criterion that the minister would actually use to decide whether or not this is a good area or not for a distillery? So if we can get some more information about landmass that would be required for small and large. I noticed that there's nothing in between that per se. But I think that it's great. I think that's a great opportunity for us to work with those abroad to get investment into the country, to get locals involved in this particular industry. Now, I don't know if there are any restrictions or with the restrictions that we already have when it comes to local ownership of distillery, whether or not we will be allowing that, or does it fit under the same ruling that, 60-40 rule per se. And if you want otherwise, you have to apply for that. With a new industry, what are some of the incentives that government is looking at to try and encourage it to come to Bermuda? We do have local companies, the Goslings and the likes, who may be interested in this, and be nice to hear whether or not the minister, in his homework, some of the conversation that he had with these industries, that are, well, these headquarters that are here, they obviously are distilling abroad, not in Bermuda, as to some of the challenges that they are having. I recall a conversation as many years ago with some of the larger companies, Gosling in particular, they were at one particular time considering maybe they want to move their headquarters out of Bermuda. So it's nice to see that they are still here. But what are we doing to incentivize to help this particular industry to get up and running as quickly as possible? Because it is an opportunity, and I would hate for us to squander the opportunity without actually looking at how we can incentivize it to get it here and to get Bermudians involved in the particular industry. Maybe one other of my members may want to speak to this particular bill, but I do have a lot of questions during clause time, so I will save those comments for that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, member. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? MP De Silva?
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to make a contribution to this bill today. And I'd just like to say that, echo some of the things that the minister said, and that there's a business expansion, employment opportunities for our people, and entrepreneurship possibilities. We know that Goslings have long been the face on certain products in this country, and now overseas in a big way, as I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Speaker. So Goslings have done well. They have had a lot of time to do well because they've been in business for a long time in this country. I had the pleasure of being in the same class with Malcolm Gosling Jr. For several years at Soltis together. So I know Malcolm quite well, and certainly we trade conversations over the years, even though we've long since parted from schoolmates. So I just wanted to say that the Honorable Member Cannonier just took his seat, talked about the viability and sustainability, which I think is a very valid concern. But I would like to say that when we on this side bring legislation and we change legislation, what we like to do is provide opportunities and provide framework for our people. And I think this is one of those pieces of legislation that does just that. And whilst I hear the Honorable Member Cannonier talk about, and he said it several times, he worried about sustainability. And of course, that is up to the individual. It's up to a company. And I'm glad the Honorable Member Cannonier talked about overseas possibilities. Overseas companies looking at Bermuda, and I hope they do. And I think I heard the Honorable Member correctly when he said he spoke to someone just yesterday or day before, right? And he says he did. I would certainly encourage the Honorable Member to get them to reach out to the minister. And I'm sure that the minister might be able to have a conversation with the Honorable Member and be happy to maybe introduce that particular company to any Bermudian that might be interested in starting a business. So I'm very happy for this legislation. I think it will, if someone makes a positive move in this direction. I think members might be familiar with young Chris Ferbert Jr., who produces 9 parishes, right? And it's become very popular in Bermuda. And here's a young man that still, as far as I know, produces the 9 parishes product out of his home. And I think he's done well. And you see more and more, as Goslings have done over many years, 9 parishes are starting to pop up in different places. So I think that, like Chris Ferbert Jr., I think there are other Chris Ferbert Jr.'s out there that will look at this legislation and say, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me. And which jumps into the tourism product. I think 9 parishes the label itself gives a very unique and a Bermudian touch to it. So I think that between Gosling's Black Seal and Chris Webber Jr.'s 9 parishes, I think those are good examples. One is at the very, very top and been very, very successful over the decades. And I think young Chris Webber is being certainly had some success in producing his product. So I think this is great. And I will just, before I take my seat, emphasize the fact that the Progressive Labor Party will continue to try to provide frameworks and opportunities. We open up the avenues for people to look at going in their own business, and this is just one of them. So thank you, Minister. I look forward to this legislation being passed, and let's see what comes of it after that. Thank you.
Thank you, MP. Does any other member wish to make a contribution at this time? Any other? There are none. Minister, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There were quite a few questions posed or suggestions made. So I'm going to address as many of them as I can in a quick summary. There was a question of is this process labor intensive and or is it mechanized? Well, obviously, this still is the key part of this this industry. That is the process, the machinery that converts and separates those liquids, and the end product ends up being a distilled spirit. So there are jobs at every stage of that. You have the person who has to have the experience of distilling. As I said in my brief, it's not a simple process. It involves a great deal of heat. There's a byproduct of alcohol, and there are byproducts that are not environmentally friendly. And if the distillation process is not done properly, people can get sick from drinking the heart. So there are jobs in that entire process, as well as from a distribution and a merchandising perspective, whether that's distributing around the island externally, because we said in our brief that there would be opportunities for applying for an export license. So there are jobs at every stage of this process. There was a lot of talk of sustainability. So when we sit down and we meet with someone on something like this here, where we're bringing a new industry or a new entity within an existing industry, we always talk about sustainability, renewable energies. Can you do it a different way? Can it be done where it's more environmentally friendly? So that is something that we discuss, and I know the Economic Development Department discussed that with people. What about renewable energy as opposed to the fossil fuels? So these are things that are going on in different areas of government as far as sustainability, and whether or not an individual or an entity can sustain itself in the industry, that's a decision for them once they look at the prospects of getting into it. Whilst we have not had conversations with farmers, we have had conversations with entities that are interested in this industry. And interestingly enough, they have suggested that we get the farmers involved. They would prefer to buy whatever product they can from our local farmers. And so that is there for local farmers if they wish to jump in and take that up. It's an opportunity to produce products for a specific industry, a new industry for Bermuda. And that, I believe, answers another question that was asked. Can other industries participate? Well, you have your farmers who can produce some of the raw material. You have your exporters who can ship it off the island. And so those are two industries that come readily to mind. The truckers get involved in moving it about the island. So there are other industries that are participating. When the question was raised about how much space does this take, how much acreage or land or whatever, well, we'll have the fire inspectors, the usual authorities, environmental inspections, health and safety, planning. All of these things will be involved. All these departments will still be involved in the licensing process. We have, and that licensing process will fall under the liquor licensing authority. So all of those processes will be followed and assessed to determine where and if a still operation can occur at any particular location. And it's all about safety. Includes the farmers as well. Local farmers enjoy 100% duty relief under tariff CPC 4215 for goods for local commercial production and retail packaging. So if they want to get involved in producing on a greater scale sugarcane or some other product that will factor in to this new industry, there are already provisions for that to happen, and incentives was the word mentioned as well. Glass bottles, you'll need bottles to put the end product in. So glass bottles are duty-free under tariff code 7010.900. So there are already provisions in place that this industry can take advantage of to help it get off the ground and to keep it sustained from a cost perspective. I'll also address the types of licenses. And we must keep in mind when we think of the types of licenses, we are looking to scale them for Bermuda. We know it's $1 billion industry in the United States, but again, we have put in provisions and we are looking at what will distinguish between one license versus the other. And if you just give me a second to get to my notes, I will explain how we will determine. So the output of a still can vary depending on several factors, including its design and the efficiency of the distillation process. So for purposes of this act, a small-scale license will apply where the combined total output per batch of all the stills used in the operations is 150 liters or less. So that's from one run in the whole still operation. That will be considered a small-scale license operation. And so a commercial license will apply where the combined total output per batch of all the stills used in the operation is more than 150 liters. So those are the guidelines that will be used to distinguish between the two licenses. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I think I've addressed in a general term many of the questions or issues raised so far. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be committed.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy, the House is going to move to committee.
Honorable members, we are now in committee of the whole for further consideration on the bill entitled the Distilleries Licensing Act 2023. Minister Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to move clauses 1 through 6.
Continue, Minister.
Mr. Chairman, Clause 1 provides the citation of the bill. Clause 2 provides for the interpretation of terms used in the bill. Clause 3 provides that the minister may issue guidance for the purposes of the act, and that such guidance shall be taken into account when assessing compliance with the provisions of this act. Mr. Chairman, Clause 4 provides that the minister may, by order subject to the negative resolution procedure, prohibit an area or place specified in the order from containing or being used as a distillery, and no license shall be issued for such area or place. Clause 5 provides the functions of the Liquor Licensing Authority. Clause 6 provides that the minister may give general policy directions to the Liquor Licensing Authority which relate to the performance of its functions, and the Liquor Licensing Authority shall give effect to such directions.
Thank you, Minister. Is there any speakers to clauses 1 to 6? The MP Cannonier, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Let me just get to the proper page here first. On clause 4, actually page 4, where we talk about prohibited areas or places. At the very bottom. The minister, after consultation with licensing authority, may by order prohibit an area from containing. And I guess I wanted to get a little more understanding as to what might be some of those prohibited places that the minister would say we should not put a distillery there, small or large. Understanding also that with 150 liters, you might be able to do that in the home per se for a small distillery.
Any further speakers? Minister.
Mr. Chairman, as I stated in my brief, this process involves a great deal of heat. One of the byproducts is alcohol. There's a smell attached. So working with the appropriate authorities, the fire, health, the environmental, looking at the environmental impacts, taking all of that into consideration and the recommendations, and looking at the area, whether it's a neighborhood, if it's an open space, it's industrial already. These are the things that we will take into consideration. The Liquor Licensing Authority will take into consideration when determining whether a license should be issued.
Any further speakers?
Yes, Deputy. I'm still confused as to, I think the question is obviously we have areas of that we would prefer not things to happen in schools or whatever the case may be. You're talking about heat and the lights, but you're not giving us what is the guideline that the minister has?
I think the minister is saying to you that what is approved by the authorities, fire department, environmental, that's basically the answer he gave you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Under functions of licensing authority, and licensing at the very bottom of page 5. Types of licenses. We did speak briefly about small and large scale. Yes,
Clause 5, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Large and small scale. And I was looking for a definition, and you mentioned the 150 liters for small scale type operation. Do you have an idea of what that space would take up to do something like that with a distillery, considering all of the mechanisms that have to be put in place, you know, heat and all that, as you mentioned? Is there like a footprint that you believe it would take?
Mr. Chairman, again, the process that a person would have to go through, an inspection of where they're looking to have their distillery, all of that comes into play, whether it's a small or a commercial, small scale or commercial license. So these are the things that will be taken into account, and recommendations will be made. No, this is not a good place based on all of the information and everything I've said already, whether or not this is a spot where the liquor licensing authority will recommend and approve a license for. I don't know how to say it any clearer.
Thank you, Minister. Any further speakers? That's it, Mr. Cannonier?
Yes.
Minister, you want to approve functions 1 to 6, clauses 1 to 6?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 1 to 6 be approved.
It has been moved that clauses 1 to 6 be approved. Are there any objections to that? There appear to be none. Approved. Minister, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 7 to 15
Continue.
be moved. Clause 7 provides that the minister shall publish in the Gazette annually the name of every licensed distillery. Clause 8 provides the types of license that may be granted by the Liquor Licensing Authority under the bill, which include a distillery license and a commercial distillery license. It also provides a list of persons who are disqualified from obtaining a license. Clause 9 provides the requirements for applying for the grant or renewal of a license. Clause 10 provides that the licensing authority shall provide a written notice of its decision to grant or refuse to grant a license. Clause 11 specifies the information to be contained in a license. Clause 12 provides the terms and conditions applicable to each license. Clause 13 provides that the duration of a license is 1 year, subject to the revocation or suspension of a license. Clause 14 provides that a license must be displayed in a prominent place of a distillery. And clause 15 provides that a license may be renewed annually on application.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any speakers to clauses 7 to 15? MP Cannonier, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Deputy. Yes, clause 8, section 4, which speaks to the following persons shall be disqualified from applying for and obtaining a license. Much of this all pretty easy to decipher, but subsection D, where it says any person serving in Her Majesty's forces in Bermuda or any member of the Bermuda Police Services. Was wondering why we included the Bermuda Police Services as a prohibited group.
Minister.
Individuals.
Mr. Chairman, in our consultation and our meetings with chambers, we were advised that these are standard clauses in these types of bills.
Thank you. Mr. MP Cannonier, any further?
Yeah, just as a clarification on that, when he says standard, because this is a new industry, what other industry are you referring to that might be a standard when you say that as a standard? This is a new industry.
But you know, MP, you got the police service. They are the enforcers of the law. You can't have the forces of the law policing themselves. I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, but they can go into business in just about anything there. A policeman right now, he can open up a business,
Minister?
taxi service, or
Mhm. Correct.
Just waiting for my technical people.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is the same prohibition that's in the Liquor Licensing Act 1974.
Okay.
okay.
Any further speakers to clauses 7 to 15? There appear to be none. Minister, you want to move clauses 7 to 15?
Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 7 to 15 be approved.
It has been moved that clauses 7 to 15 be approved. Are there any objections to that? There appear to be none. Clauses 7 to 15 is approved. Continue, Minister.
Mr. Chairman, I move clauses 16 through 24.
Continue.
Mr. Chairman, clause 16 provides that the Liquor Licensing Authority may revoke a license at any time in specified circumstances. Clause 17 provides that a license may be suspended or varied at the request of the distiller or if the distiller has contravened a term or condition of a license or contravened the bill or any regulations made under the bill. Clause 18 provides that the Liquor Licensing Authority must give written notice of the reasons for the revocation, suspension, or variation to a distiller and give the distiller the chance to object within 7 days of the notice. It also provides that such objection will be considered by the Liquor Licensing Authority when making its decision to revoke, suspend, or vary a license. Clause 19 provides that the Liquor Licensing Authority may transfer or refuse to transfer a license on application by the distiller. Clause 20 provides that a distiller may surrender a license by giving notice in writing to the Liquor Licensing Authority, with the surrender taking effect on the date approved by the authority. Clause 21 provides that a distiller must notify the authority of a lost or destroyed license and pay the prescribed fee for a replacement license. Clause 22 provides that a distiller must notify the Liquor Licensing Authority in writing of a change in address and creates an offense for failing to do so. Clause 23 provides that a distiller may have a distillery warehouse approved by the Liquor Licensing Authority for the secure storage of distilled spirits and creates an offense where distilled spirits are stored at a place other than a distillery warehouse. Clause 24 provides that an applicant or distiller aggrieved by a decision of the licensing authority may appeal to the magistrate court within 14 days of being notified of the decision.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any speakers to clauses 16 to 24? MB Cannoneer, you have the floor.
Just as a clarification for myself, if I wanted to refer to a schedule that goes to one of these clauses, do I have to wait until the end to go to the schedule, or can I do it under? I just have a question on the schedule that refers to renewing of a license.
Well,
in
go
these
ahead.
clauses.
Continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So if you're going to renew a license, what I was trying to understand a little better is why is the renewal fee for a commercial license discounted by 50% when the small scale license remains the same?
That's in Schedule 1 that you're referring to?
My apologies.
Page 22.
Yes, page 22.
Yeah.
Yes, my apologies.
Okay, we set the initial application fees for the license at what we thought was reasonable for the small or the distillery license. It was higher in the first instance, the initial license, because that would involve a more intensive process because it's a commercial distillery. So that fee is higher to begin with. And upon renewal, as part of that process, there would be the incentive of not having the high fee every year on renewal. So it's an incentive put in there. And discounted fees on renewal are consistent with other laws that we have.
Thank you, Minister. MP Kennedy.
Just so I can be clear, yeah, I just want to be clear on this. So for the commercial license, we'll discount the renewal at 50%, but for the small scale, it will remain the same, just period, as always. I just want to be clear, that's what you're saying.
That's correct. And in setting that initial fee, we thought it was reasonable. So
Anything further, Mr. Kennedy? MP?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Any further speakers to clauses 16 to 24? There appear to be none. Minister, you want to move?
Mr. Chair, I move that clauses 16 to 24 be approved.
It has been moved that clauses 16 to 24 be approved. Are there any objections to that? There appear to be none. Clauses 16 to 24 are approved. Minister, before you go any further, can I call on the Deputy Premier to take us to lunch?
I have one question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do move that we adjourn for lunch until 2 p.m.
We are adjourned for lunch, and we'll see you all at 2 p.m. where we will continue the debate. Thank you.